Hey there, welcome back to Creepy Encounters. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos. Story 1, Nurse said it was my own fault that he hurt me. This happened to me when I was 21 after an odd suicide attempt. I woke up in the hospital in the middle of the night to a nurse saying he needed to replace my 4. He jabs me 2 or 3 times but doesn't hit a vein, so I ask if he could get someone else to try. He says no and keeps going. As he is doing this, he is pushing and wiggling the needles around under my skin saying he is trying to get the vein. By the 7th or 8th needle, it registers that he is intentionally trying to hurt me. I asked him, "Why are you doing this?" He just says, "It's your own fault you're here." I was too weak to fight back and it was the middle of the night, there was no one else around I could call out to. I have no idea how many times he ended up puncturing me in the end. The next day a different nurse was taking out my 4. She was horrified because she said it was the biggest needle she'd ever seen used on a living patient. Not sure why you would use needles on a dead patient, but that's what she said. A lot of people shrug this off when I tell them about it, but it was so terrifying being alone, helpless, and knowing that the person who was supposed to care for you hated you and wanted to cause you pain. So yeah, night nurse who loves huge needles and hates mentally ill girls, let's not meet again. Edit, thanks everyone for your kind words and support, you don't know what it means to me. For those wondering, I am doing much better now. This happened 7 years ago and I didn't report it. Very small town, I was scared that people I worked with would find out about my suicide attempt if I pursued it, plus I was just focused on survival. You all have encouraged me, though, and I'm going to do my best to track this guy down and report it to someone. Sending my love to all those who shared their own stories of medical abuse and trauma in the comments. While not specifically trying to cause me injury, I did have a nurse who tried to block me from getting proper examination and treatment when I was 23. After weeks of having increasing pain in my back and difficulty breathing, I had finally taken myself to the ER early one morning. I was having pain so severe my vision would start to go dark like I was going to pass out, and taking a full breath was impossible. For hours every time a doctor would come around to examine me, the same nurse was always present and would quickly tell the doc I was being difficult, exaggerating, and purposely breathing funny. I was none of theses, not even close. Except for involuntary tears from pain, I wasn't even crying. This went on for 10 hours. During that time I was never given anything for pain. Along came a doc who was not accompanied by this nurse. He read my chart. Looked at me. Read it again. Asked me to do a few things while examining me. Read my chart again. Looks at me and asks, "Why does your chart say you're uncooperative, verbally abusive, malingering, and purposely not breathing properly?" I told him I don't know, the nurse has been saying that since 5 a.m. Straight up asks me if I'm breathing this way on my own. No. Asks me to take as deep of a breath as I can. I do, I almost pass out and the monitors show something is going on. He says, "I'm sending you for one test, I'd ask to just be released many times, and if it's fine I'll have you released with medication for your pain." Alright, fine, I'll do it. Scan comes back. Doctor and bunch of nurses come running and start hooking me up to a bunch of machines and pushing in IVs and meds very fast. Turns out I had blood clots in my lungs. Not 1. Not 2. Not 3. Many clots, most of which could and should have killed me. The nurse ended up in quite a bit of hot water. That same doc pretty much lost his shit on her in the ER. The hospital admin came and spoke to me and my parents a number of times about what had happened. I ended up in the ICU for a week, then more days stepping down in care level until release, then years of complications and remaining on blood thinners. Story 2, stalked at work until I turned 18. Worked at a hardware store in high school. We had a number of fairly regular customers, but there was one man in his mid-30s that became a regular after I checked his items out one night. I noticed that I kept seeing him on my shift, and he would continually try to strike up awkward conversations with me / hold up the line until I told him I had to take care of other customers. Our registers were in front of a large glass window, so anyone walking outside could see who was working. He eventually started to wait outside the window / tap on the glass to get my attention after leaving. I rode my bike to work, and getting off late at night started to terrify me. One night, when I was working alone, he asked me if he could have my number, and if I was 18. When I told him that I wasn't, he asked for my birthday, to which I replied some arbitrary date in the distant future. I told my boss about this interaction, and from then on, she made sure I never worked alone, and she would follow his ass any time he entered the store to the point where he stopped coming. The day of my fake birthday, or close to it, I couldn't remember the exact date I had given him, He came knocking on the glass again. It was busy, and my boss wasn't around, so I tried to ignore him. I eventually noticed that the knocking had stopped, and I could only assume he had made his way into the store. Very soon after, I am greeted by his face in front of my register. He hands me a plastic grocery bag and says happy 18th birthday. I am embarrassed, so I take the bag and tell him to please leave. When my friend and I opened up the bag after work, it contained 2 packages of fireworks, and nothing else. I also had a stalker in high school. I worked at a drugstore. Somehow, this guy knew when I worked, my nickname, and when my stepdad was out of town for work. He called work in my house, asking for me. One night, he told me what I was wearing when I was at home. I told my boss, and he made sure to walk me to my car every shift from then on. I worked at a Kroger store while in high school. There were a lot of weird people. I lived in Ann Arbor at the time, and they have a 10-cent bottle return. I spent as much time as I could working in the bottle room, as I like to call it, to stay away from the people. But there was this one guy who was my white whale. He returned bottles with photocopied barcodes on them. Whenever I found them in the machine containers, I would run up and try to catch him. I caught a glimpse of him one time when he was running away. He looked like that bald guy from Whose Line Is It Anyway? It was so weird. I don't know what you plan on doing after this. But just be super careful that he doesn't just disappear to break a pattern so he can catch you off guard. This is not meant to scare you. Maybe ask to change the pattern of your shifts so he won't know when to expect you anymore. Take a different route home, different timing than usual. Maybe he wanted to have a platform to speak to underage girls without being questioned, but nonetheless, it's fucked up. Maybe he's gone for good, who knows. But better be safe than sorry. Problem is, you can never tell someone has ill intention until something bad happens. Be careful, please. Story 3, someone pretended to be my father and tried to break into our house. A little context, my dad and I live together in our own multi-family home in Germany. My dad has a serious lung condition. His lungs produce and trap an excessive amount of mucus. The trapped amount is huge and keeps his lungs from working correctly. It's pretty normal that he has to be picked up by an ambulance every 2 to 3 weeks because he can't breathe anymore. Last week it was that time of the month. He couldn't breathe, I called an ambulance, he was brought to the closest hospital. Pretty normal for me because this happened at least 10 times in the last 6 months. So I went to bed after he got picked up Tuesday. I went to work the next morning and got a text from him that he has to stay for at least 2 more days, approximately Friday. Wednesday evening I got home from work and played a match of Rogue Company when someone suddenly rang the doorbell. That's unusual because we never have unannounced visitors. I walked to the door and was about to press the door buzzer to open the main door when I heard, I believe, more than one voice directly in front of my door. So that someone just got past the main door. Weird. I asked, in German, hello, who is it? Silence for 3 seconds. Then a person who sounds like my father but at the same time doesn't sound like my father answers, Miha. It's me, I forgot my keys, open the door. I thought okay in that case. Wait a minute. My dad never calls me Miha. Only Michi. And there was that sarcastic tone in that voice. I didn't trust the situation. I called my father on his phone. If the person in front of my door was my father, his phone should ring. Right? Right. It didn't. Big whoop. My father answered, and as I suspected, he still was in the hospital. Meanwhile, the 2 persons on the other side of the door heard my phone call and started kicking my door. Let me in, Miha, it's your daddy, let me in. Thank God that door is reinforced. After I threatened them with calling police and having a big ass knife in my hand, they left. I heard their footsteps running down the staircase. I rushed to a window facing the street to check if I can see a car or a license plate. Nothing. Just a few footsteps in the distance. They never came back. What's weird is that they knew my name and that my father wasn't home despite his car standing in the driveway. Shit was hitting the fan when a buddy reported something similar. We called the police. Investigation in progress. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around the world. See you in the next video. Bye.